Aloha, welcome to the 41st session for the Committee on Finance. Today is August 4th, 2026. It's 9:30 a.m. Today's meetings are being held in the Kona Council Chambers, and we do have our outlying sites open to the public as well. Calling this meeting to order. To my right, I have Councilmember Kimball, Councilmember Galimba, Councilmember Villegas. To my left, I have Councilmember Kailua-Kona, Councilmember Hustis, Councilmember Kirkowitz, Councilmember Onishi, and Councilmember Inaba is excused. And we also have Mr. Henricks, County Clerk, joining us today as our official overseer. Is there any testimony for today?
Thank you, Chair Connie Kleinfelder. We do have one testifier here in chambers. I'll check with Mr. Uriselli if we have any testifiers on Zoom or outer sites before I take our testifier here.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Just confirming that you do not have any other testifiers at this time.
Thank you so much. May I ask Ms. Terry Hawkins to come forward to provide testimony on bill number 173? Please activate the microphone when you're ready by pushing the button with the green sticker on it. It should light up red to let you know that it's ready for you. Okay, and then when you proceed, please start by introducing yourself. You'll have 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay, my name is Terry Hawkins. I'm a senior citizen of 73 years. I'm a resident in Hawaii for 23 years. I'm a small business owner of a hosted short-term vacation rental at my home studio for 22 years. I work 2 jobs at this time to pay my mortgage. I'll always have a mortgage, and I'm not crying the blues about economics here, but I work at the university part-time and run my vacation rental to pay my mortgage. The 400% tax increase I paid last week for the first 6 months is a big economic burden on me. Any extra money, and anybody who owns a home knows you have roofing, that's 40,000, cars, that's another 30,000. It's a fine line margin of profit that I have with this rental, and this proposal 173 will put me out of business. And I'm a small business owner, and a lot of the campaign platforms I read are address protecting small businesses. This isn't protecting it. There's 3 things I see wrong with this proposal. Number 1, it's not addressing the problem of unhosted rentals, which were initially the beef with short-term vacation rentals, and I can totally understand that. There's no vested interest in a neighborhood with someone that buys a home and waltzes back to the mainland and rents it out. I don't agree with that at all, and I think that should be addressed. 2, I've already said, you're putting a legitimate small business owner out of business. And 3, the winners in this proposal, if it goes forward as written, are the big hotel chains. Small or short-term vacation rentals, as anyone knows, we've cut into the business by about 47%, tourist business with big hotels. It's a much better deal. I hear that all the time from my guests. They don't like being gouged when they come over here. And also the bulk of large hotel business, the money goes to the mainland. The money I generate stays and gets spent here. I know right now of 2 short-term vacation rental hosted studios that are shutting the doors because they said you can't fight something like this. And I don't agree because it's not right. The compromise I proposed, and I sent everybody a letter, I don't know if you read it just by email, but ag already gets the break of what they call a mixed use. You've got residential use of the property, you've got commercial. To me, that would be fair with my home. My vacation rental is about 350 square feet. My home total is probably 17 or 1,800. Tax that commercial portion like you do with ag at the high property tax rate, but don't penalize the residential portion of the house, which is the bulk of the house. I think that would satisfy the intent of a law that's been resurrected after being passed 40 years ago in 1986 that addresses commercial use of residential property.
Your 3 minutes are up.
Okay, I just want to say it's not fair and it's not right. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Yep. Have a good day.
Thank you. Good to go? Okay. Let's start with Mr. Capitan. Let's go to resolution number 611, please.
Is there any testimony for Resolution 611-26? Hearing none, Resolution 611-26 authorizes the mayor to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the State of Hawaii Department of the Attorney General to receive a grant for the Hawaii Police De-Escalation Training Project. Allows for receipt of $129,033 in federally derived funds to be used to conduct verbal judo de-escalation training for law enforcement. Introduced by Councilmember Connolly-Clanfelder by request.
Chair, motion to forward Resolution 611-26 to council with a favorable recommendation.
I have a motion by Councilmember Eustis and a second by Councilmember Kirkowitz to forward resolution 611-26 to council with a favorable recommendation. We have members of our police department here if there's any questions. Okay, hearing and seeing none, motion is on the floor. All in favor? Any opposed? Mr. Clerk, you have 8 ayes. Councilmember Inaba excused. Motion carries. Bill 177, please.
Is there any testimony for Bill 177? Hearing none. Bill 177 amends orders number 26-44, the operating budget of the County of Hawaii for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2027. Appropriates revenues in the federal grants Burn State Crisis Intervention Program grant account, $129,033, and appropriates same to the Burn State Crisis Intervention De-Escalation Training Program account. Funds be used to conduct verbal judo de-escalation training for law enforcement. Introduced by Councilmember Connolly-Clanfelder by request.
Chair, motion to forward Bill 177 to council with a favorable recommendation.
A motion by Councilmember Eustis, second by Councilmember Kagiwara to forward Bill 177 to council with a favorable recommendation. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, motion is on the floor. All in favor? Any opposed? Mr. Clerk, 8 members in favor. Mr. Inaba excused. Motion carries. And finally, Bill 178.
Is there any testimony for Bill 178? Hearing none, Bill 178 amends orders number 26-44, the operating budget of the County of Hawaii for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2027. Appropriates revenues in the federal grants Justice Assistance Grant Special Response Team Capability Enhancement Grant account, $20,797, and appropriates the same to the Justice Assistance Grant Special Response Team Capability Enhancement account. Introduced by Councilmember Connolly-Clanfelder by request.
Chair, motion to forward Bill 178 to council with a favorable recommendation.
Motion by Councilmember Eustis, second by Councilmember Galimba, forwarding Bill 178 to council with a favorable recommendation. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Motion is on the floor. All in favor? Any opposed? Mr. Clerk, you have 8 members in favor. Mr. Inaba excused. And let's go to the top of the agenda, please.
Is there any testimony for communication 23.39? Hearing none. Communication 23.39, report of fund transfers authorized June 1 through 15, 2026, from Controller John Arbles dated July 6, 2026.
Chair, motion to close file on communication 23.39.
Motion by Councilmember Eustis, seconded by Councilmember Galimba. Closing file on communication 23.39. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none. Motion is on the floor. All in favor? Any opposed? Mr. Clerk, you have 9 members in favor. Motion carries. Sorry, 8 members in favor. Mr. Inaba excused. Motion carries.
Is there any testimony for communication 23.40? Hearing none. Communication 23.40, report of fund transfers authorized June 16 through 30, 2026, from Controller John Arbles dated July 6, 2026.
Chair, motion to close file on communication 23.40.
Motion by Councilmember Eustis and seconded by Councilmember Onishi to close file on communication 23.40. Any discussion?
Yes, Chair.
Mr. Eustis, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. First question is for Public Works. If we have anyone online from Public Works.
Hi.
Hi, Ms.
Good morning.
Kailua. Good to see you. Just a question on, this is for Building Division specifically. It mentions that Funds are needed to cover May to June security guard services for the county building because it was under budgeted. What does this look like for the year, the current fiscal year now in terms of an appropriate funding source there?
The current fiscal year, so actually, in fiscal year 27, we look like we might have to cover some additional costs that were not budgeted again, just to we added an additional location for the new Kailua-Kona building where the vehicle registration will be. So, unfortunately, we're gonna have to find funds to cover an additional increase, and then, of course, the additional site.
Okay.
It shouldn't be too much. We think we can handle it within the budget.
And so that new site was added towards the end of the last fiscal year then?
Yes, it is a new location, so it was added on more towards the end of the fiscal year. We were in discussion with the vendor, and there was a slight price increase to that as well. But we were too late in the budget process to amend that at that point.
And so for a couple of months, it was 56,000, so looking at for quite a bit more then for going forward.
Our initial estimates to cover the overage is about maybe an additional, oof, it's like about, I think it was maybe just under $30,000. So we talked to finance and we're watching the budget closely. That is an essential service, so we want to make sure we have enough funds to cover it throughout the year, and definitely will be more diligent in budgeting for fiscal year 28.
Thank you, Ms. Kouloulis. Appreciate that. Thank you for your time.
No problem.
Chair, the only other remark I will make is on the parks one, unfortunately there was, just on the record here, unfortunate to see monies transferred away from aquatics to repairs to facilities, away from that, because I know the Kohala pool is in need of repairs. So it's unfortunate to see those monies being transferred away. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kailua-Kona.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, Public Works, can you come back? Ms. Kailua-Kona, are you available? Sorry.
No.
Thank
no
you.
problem.
Thank you for jumping on. So you've got two here from Traffic Division that are taking money from sources and putting it into traffic signals and highway materials.
Yes.
One to the tune of $176,000 and the other one $81,000. These are traffic signals that we did not anticipate, or what's going on?
Not necessarily. So we did come under budget in all those accounts that we were transferring from. So traffic, we talked about this more towards the end of the year. They had some excess funds, and the traffic signals, highway, the materials, it's something that we always need on hand and we can always use. They store it in the warehouse. So when we discussed it, we talked about just replenishing the stock, replenishing the supplies, since we did have extra funds that we're planning to lapse.
Okay, I see. So it's not that you had a specific area that you were working on that needed traffic signal materials this past year. You are just using some funds that were not utilized in other areas and moving it over and kind of getting ready for this upcoming year.
Yes, especially because, there's a lot of unknown costs when there's damages or accidents. So always having supplies or a backstock is always helpful for
Okay.
that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I yield.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Onishi.
Thank you, Chair. Is Parks and Rec there? In Hilo?
Yes,
Oh, good morning, Shamin.
good morning.
Okay, so I just have
Sorry,
one.
Mr. Onishi, can you please introduce yourself for the record?
Charmaine Felipe, Business Manager for Parks and Recreation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, My question is, so there was money transfer from aquatics and went to recreation for electricity. Can you specify more on what is the electricity for, like for the field, lights, gyms? Because I've seen at times some of the fields, lights are on and nobody's on the field. Because I was told it's on timer.
Yes, and we've been monitoring it. They've been doing well in turning them off in a timely manner. I know we had that issue the prior year, and that's why we've been monitoring it and they've been turning it off. The price of electricity and the service has gone up, and this is an island-wide increase.
Okay, because like, it just says like utility electricity due to higher usage. It's not like if you folks would say it was just because of the higher costs, then would be
Yes.
much better.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. So I just wanted to put that note out. And I hope, yeah, and please continue on monitoring those field lights because that's a lot of electricity that it's taking. And even, I've seen one time in Kona where their old airport, they had the soccer field. Those lights were all on and nobody was on the field.
Right, and in Kohala, we had that big repair up at the Kohala field. And now that field is in use more often. And so that could be a contributor to this as well.
And just to give this balance, I also, in my district, there's this one park, baseball park, that on Sunday nights, the lights are on and nobody's on the field. Yeah, so please continue doing that. Thank you.
Yes.
I yield.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilmember Cookowitz?
Thank you, Chair. I actually have a question for Finance Director. Director, I think we're all noticing an increase in funds for security services throughout county facilities island-wide. And I'm wondering if at the next committee hearing, when we have these report transfers, if we could get a full calculation of what's been budgeted and then all of the reported transfers over the last couple of fiscal years in relation to security services. I think it just points to a larger social issue that we're having to deal with, but I think it would be good for the council to know just how much these services are costing the county. And then I also am concerned about the movement of funding out of aquatics. Not only is Councilmember Eustis's district impacted, but the Pahoa Pool, which has hosted state and national swim meets, has been in need of dire repair. And thankfully, there is a geothermal fund to support some of those upgrades. It's okay. I'm so sorry. I think it would be really helpful to know if these transfers that are being made, specifically more towards the end of the fiscal year, if you're taking that into consideration as you go into this next budget cycle, right? Not just carrying over the same budget, but looking at where money was actually really needed and making those strategic adjustments. Do you want to elaborate on that a little? Thank you.
Sorry,
good morning.
Before you do, Ms. Kirkowitz, where in 23.40 are you seeing the security services?
Security services, let me go back to the top. Public Works, it's the first page. And then there was a second one. But I know I saw it on the first page, Chair.
For the RNM?
Yes, there were monies transferred out of accounts to support security services.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, members of council. Diane Nakagawa, Finance Department. Definitely noted on the cost of security increasing over actually the last several years. In the past 2 budget cycles alone, we've had significant increase in various budget line items, particularly in Parks and Recreation and the Department of Public Works. So yes, we would be happy to get a summary of that, of those increases over the last several years. I think it is notable and critical for us to understand the need in the community and what those costs have been. So I can definitely work with those departments to get that report.
And Director, I believe Mass Transit Agency has also seen an increase of security services.
Absolutely. We'll look across all departments, but
Excellent,
I was
thank
just
you.
thinking of a few that was notable, but you are correct, Mass Transit as well. Also, completely agree and had noted it as we were having this discussion this morning. These are all things that feed into our budget review that's coming up in just a couple of months. So these are the questions that from our team that we'll go through with each of the departments as we hear today, if things weren't needed. I just think we can be better in budgeting. So we need to look at those items that have come across, or what are the reasons that funds weren't needed in certain line items and where should they be appropriately. I think we do the best we can to budget our needs, and some things are unanticipated throughout the year, but there's always some improvement. And especially at the end of the fiscal year where we're seeing a lot of these transfers, these are good indications for how we can budget better in the upcoming budget review. So absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for that. Want to make sure that we're advocating for departments' operational needs, that they have what they need so they're not stretched thin, but also recognizing that for many years, constituents have asked for different capital improvements to facilities that they frequent in their districts, and just want to make sure that if the money has been set aside for those uses, that they're actually spent for those purposes and not transferred out to support other aspects of a department's operation. Thank you. I know that you're balancing so much. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Director Nakagawa, before you go. As part of that same discussion, I believe, and I strongly believe, that a lot of the security services that we are utilizing for facilities island-wide revolve around our homeless usage of our facilities, including bus stops, our parks, and any other public areas that we maintain. So maybe reviewing the allowable uses of the homeless and housing fund to be able to be utilized for contractual services to supplement or maybe divert funding from our normal departments' budgets and fund from the homeless fund instead. Might be a good use of funding.
Yes, Councilmember, we'll go ahead and take a look at that.
Good, thank you. Mr. Onishi?
Yeah, thank you, Director. Sorry. No, since Chair brought it up, I mean, we had that discussions before because of the cost, like as Councilmember Connie Kleinfelder mentioned, is that one of the problems is with the homelessness. And so the department should be able to be working with housing and having some of that money that's for the homeless and housing fund be allocated to them, right? Because then that's one of the problems, right? And so how can we get that changed, or to have the departments apply also for those fundings?
So a couple different things. I think we can review specifically the allowances of those funds. And so we can work with Corporation Council to do that. I think part of it was also over the development of the funds and the usage of the funds, priorities that were developed and set forth by either council and the departments on how those funds should be prioritized and used. But I think it's a discussion worth having on whether these increased costs are related and should be included. But I think it was part of collectively the team discussing how those funds would be used initially and for what, particularly in services or other things like that. And this kind of evolved into another need that we can look at. So happy to work with Corporation Council to look at the allowable use and also come back and share that response and have that discussion as well.
Great, that would be perfect.
Okay.
And maybe you can even like send it an email to all of us to let us know what we need to do.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Happy to do that.
Ayo.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further discussion, motion is on the floor to close file on communication 23.40. All in favor? Any opposed? Mr. Clerk, you have 8 members in favor. Mr. Inaba excused. Next item, please. Motion carries.
Is there any testimony for communication 24.37? Hearing none, communication 24.37, report of change orders authorized May 1 through 15, 2026 from Finance Director Diana Nakagawa dated July 8, 2026, transmitting the report pursuant to Section 2-12.3 of the Hawaii County Code.
Chair, motion to close file on communication 24.37.
Motion by Councilmember Husted, seconded by Councilmember Onishi to close file on communication 24.37. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Chair.
Councilmember Husted.
Thanks, Chair. Just noting that on this communication, and I've already spoken with Director Nakagawa about this, the Wilder Transitional House Facility renovation improvements, the cumulative change order supplemental agreement total, that's not accurate. So there'll be an adjustment made there in the future. I do have a question for housing on this one, though, if we do have housing online.
Morning. Royce Shiroma from the OECD.
Hello, Mr. Shiroma. Good morning. Just a question on this project here. Could you give us a little insight into what these renovation improvements are looking like in this space?
Yeah, so just for context, that this additional monies was because we had to RFP twice. We were way over on the first RFP results, and then this is the second one. We were short about 90 or some thousand. The Wilder project, which is OECD property, or county property, we're doing ADA bathroom improvements, renovations, as well as the septic conversion.
Thank you, Mr. Shiroma. Appreciate the details there. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Shiroma, while you're with us, the Community-Based Social Navigators Program.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have to pass this to Keiko on this one.
Okay.
Good morning, Keiko Mercado, Office of Housing.
Good morning, ma'am. For the Vibrant Hawaii Community-Based Social Navigators Pilot Program.
Yes.
Oh, am I in the wrong item? Oh, I'm scanning ahead. I'm sorry, Keiko.
Okay.
I'll be back. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Mr. Eustace. Okay, any further discussion on communication 24.37? Hearing and seeing none, motion is on the floor to close file on communication 24.37. All in favor? Any opposed? Mr. Clerk, you have 8 members in favor. Mr. Inaba excused. Motion carries.
Is there any testimony for communication 24.38? Hearing none, communication 24.38, report of change orders authorized May 16 through 31, 2026 from Finance Director Diana Nakagawa dated July 9, 2026, transmitting the report pursuant to Section 2-12.3 of the Hawaii County Code.
Chair, motion to close file on communication 24.38.
Motion by Councilmember Eustace, seconded by Councilmember Onishi to close file on communication 24.38. Discussion. Okay. Councilmember Kirkowitz.
Thank you. I see Miss Morrison in the audience, and I'm wondering if you're here to maybe talk a little bit about the hackbed contract in relation to general plan outreach. Okay, thank you. Because it looks like there was a change order in May of this year? Okay. An additional, let's see, an additional 65,000.
I think there was a no-cost time
Oh,
extension.
okay. It was originally a $150,000 contract. But can you just talk a little bit about the role HACBED played recently, it sounds like this year, in supporting some of the outreach for the general plan?
Sure. Aloha, good morning. Bethany Morrison, Long Range Planning Program Manager for the Planning Department. So HACBED has been on contract for several years to support the general plan outreach. They helped with some facilitation and different meeting design, process design stuff. So this year we were wrapping up, you know, the adoption of the general plan and also thinking about implementation. And one of those things had to do with our community development plan framework, which has more information in this 2045 plan than had been there. So we convened 2 different focus groups. One of them was our kind of, we call them the OGs. So this was our original group of folks that started to think about community development plans for our island. And we really wanted to get to the intent and the thought behind the design that went into those for 2005. So it included folks like our previous planning director, Chris Ewan, Roy Takimoto from the mayor's office, who had been a deputy director for planning at the time. A number of community members, Jane Testa, who had been at research and development, really to just get an understanding. So HACBED supported, again, process design and facilitation of that group. And then the second focus group that we pulled in was planners from the other counties to bring them here and have a one-day work session to talk about all things kind of community development plan related, to really try and get back into the framework and the design. Because as you guys know, we're going to be moving to the South Hilo CDP update this year. So this was all prep work. So it was kind of a general plan implementation focus groups, but really focusing on that next piece for us, which is our community development plans.
And since you mentioned CDPs, any members of Action Committee, past or present, were they engaged in the conversation with HACBED?
Yeah, so actually Nancy Pasicchio had been an invite, but ended up being diverted. It was a day, unfortunately, that we had an accident over Saddle Road and she couldn't make it to Hilo for that meeting. So we have re-engaged with them kind of offline about sort of our follow-up and what we've learned and getting some feedback from them as well.
Okay, and then is there like a report, a work product that is going to come out of the time with HACBED that can be shared either with the council or publicly?
Sure, we have several work products from them. We're still waiting on the final wrap up from those focus groups, but happy to share that out.
Yeah, and I'm really curious as you're spending time to think about updates to the CDP, I always think about the action committee component because the idea in my mind, or I think the OGs had intended for community to take those plans and implement them. And I'm always very curious about what has the community's experience been to date and what are some changes that we need to make either within our code or internal processes to make sure that that idea actually happens.
Yeah.
And takes
completely.
off. Okay, we look forward to seeing the report. Will it be transmitted before the end of this council term or?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ms. Morrison.
Thank you, you're
Chair
welcome.
Yield.
Thank you. Councilmember Onishi?
Thank you, Chair. Is R&D available?
Good morning.
You can introduce yourself.
Yeah, Dennis Lin, Deputy Director, Department of Research and Development.
Can you explain a little bit more about this amended term of agreement and budget allocation for the University of Hawaii?
Sure, yeah, so this one, we originally budgeted for the 86,000, but because one of the livestock agent was hired for a portion of the fiscal year, so the amount that they were invoicing us is reduced because it was a portion of the year, not the full year.
Well, okay, so that means we're getting, well, your budget is getting, you're not spending as much in your budget.
Yeah, we have a little bit of a reduction in that.
Okay. And you have any future plans on what you're gonna do with that balance?
Well, right now, as far as our agriculture budget allocation, you know, we did have 100,000 for food security allocated, so we might utilize some of that monies to put towards the food security line item.
Got it, okay. And in the contract with CTAR, is the contract with fiscal year or a yearly contract? Like January to December, or are we following the fiscal year from June to July? Or July to June?
I believe I have Glenn here if he's able to answer that question.
Glenn Sacco, Economic Development Specialist working with the agricultural industry. The contract, the agreement goes on a fiscal basis of July to June.
Okay, good, good. Because in the past, it was a yearly contract, correct?
Mhm.
Yes. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Okay, Keiko Mercado, please. Good morning, Ms. Mercado. Okay, so back to my question from the last communication, the community-based social navigators pilot program under OHC, the $800,000 was the original contract. That was on January 12th, 2024. The 78% increase, that is just what is that from?
So there were a couple times that we added funding to this contract. The first time was for a family-centered coaching certification program that was offered not only to the community navigators working with Vibrant Hawaii, but also offered to other organizations who are doing outreach and case management work, including folks in our Section 8 staff. And then the second time was to expand services, increase navigators.
Is there any other social navigators programs that are running from other vendors?
Not in the same way that Vibrant has it structured, no.
So yes, but different.
Yeah, I mean, we have case management that happens within our other partner orgs, but Vibrant's community navigators are really folks who are central in their own communities, which is why the requirement of the contract was to have minimum of one person in each district. And their job is really to understand the different resources that are available within community and how to connect folks to those. And then even bigger than that is teaching other people in community how to also access this information, where it's available, how it's available, so that they can help others. Kind of a train the trainer on a certain level.
Yeah, I remember this. I also remember walking through some of the homeless and housing fund grants going out to Neighborhood Place of Puna as well as Hope Services for basically exactly the same thing. So
different, I would say it's different clientele, different participants.
How often does OHCD review existing contracts within the broader scope of different funding sources, but same programmatic concepts?
So every contract that we have is monitored at least monthly. Within the homelessness and housing program, that analyzing happens very regularly. And then on a larger scale, I mean, at least quarterly.
Okay. What is the funding source for this Social Navigators pilot program?
This funding source is ARPA, SLURF.
ARPA.
Yeah, so this contract is set to end in August of this year, this month, end of this month. Because all ARPA SLR funding has to be expended before the close of this calendar year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this isn't going to continue on then past this funding source / the end of this period.
Yeah, unfortunately, no. Right now, during this final phase, they're working on evaluation, documentation of best practices, and kind of a wrap up of the pilot program. I will say that one of the times that we've seen this framework really be helpful and useful to community was during the Kona low and then the recent earthquake. Because Vibrant Hawaii has so many different hubs around the island and they have these community navigators in place, we were almost immediately able to communicate and collect data from community from a civil defense perspective to understand what the immediate needs were. And so just having that infrastructure in place was extremely helpful. So I am we're always looking for different funding sources. I am disappointed that we aren't going to be able to continue this program right now, but it'll be great to see their final evaluation and report to figure out how we modify and continue.
Okay. Where is the information from previous years for reporting for this and other social navigators programs that we have?
We have reporting from Vibrant Hawaii per this contract. I can share that.
And the other social navigators programs that we have through Neighborhood Place of Puna
Those are
and Hope Services.
yeah, those would be with case management, not social navigators. Those are with our program staff.
And are the reports online?
No.
Okay.
No, but we can share those, especially if you're looking for specific information.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Mercado.
Of course.
Okay. Seeing no further lights and no discussion, motion is on the floor to close file on communication 24.38. All in favor? Any opposed? Mr. Clerk, you have 8 members in favor. Mr. Inaba excused. Motion carries.
Is there any testimony for communication 27.6? Hearing none. Communication 27.6, report of donations received from the Daniel R. Sayer Memorial Foundation as of April 2026 from Finance Director Diana Kagawa, dated July 9, 2026, transmitting the report pursuant to Resolution 468-20.
Chair, motion to close file on communication 27.6.
Motion by Councilmember Houston, seconded by Councilmember Galimba, closing file on communication 27.6. Any discussion? Councilmember Galimba?
Just want to say thank you to the Sarah Foundation for the trucks. They will, I'm sure, be very, very helpful for our public safety officials.
Thank you very much, Ms. Galimba. Well said. Thank you. Okay, seeing no further discussion, motion is on the floor to close file on communication 27.6. All in favor? Any opposed? Mr. Clerk, you have 8 members in favor. Mr. Inaba excused. Motion carries.
Is there any testimony under communication 118.6? Hearing none. Communication 118.6, fourth quarter reallocation report, April 1 through June 30, 2026, from Human Resources Director Summer J. Tokihiro, dated July 14, 2026.
Chair, motion to close file on communication 118.6.
We have a motion by Councilmember Houston and a second by Councilmember Galimba to close file on communication 118.6. Any discussion? Councilmember Eustace.
Chair, just a quick note. Director Tokihiro, happy to work with you and Director Nakagawa on providing additional clarity to this report. I think there's more we could kind of present in this report and from the public outset what it looks like. So thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further discussion, motion is on the floor. All in favor? Any opposed? Mr. Clerk, you have 8 ayes. Councilmember Inaba excused. Motion carries.
Is there any testimony for communication 574.3? Hearing none, communication 574.3, report of non-capitalized donations for April 1 through June 30, 2026 from Finance Director Diane Nakagawa, dated June 8, 2026, transmitted the above report pursuant to Resolution 200-25.
Chair, motion to close file on communication 574.3.
Motion by Councilmember Eustace and seconded by Councilmember Kagiwara to close file on communication 574.3. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, motion is on the floor. All in favor? Any opposed? Mr. Clerk, you have 8 ayes. Mr. Inaba excused. Motion carries.
Is there any testimony for communication 970? Hearing none, communication 970, tabular summary of net funded debt as of June 30, 2026 from Finance Director Diane Nakagawa, dated July 13, 2026, transmitting the report pursuant to Chapter 47C of the Hawaii Revised Statutes.
Chair, motion to close file on communication 970.
Motion by Councilmember Eustace, seconded by Councilmember Onishi to close file on communication 970. Any discussion? Councilmember Glemba.
Thank you. Thank you, Director, for coming up. I just wanted to ask if there's any sort of material changes to this that we might want to know about.
Sure, happy to answer that. Diane Nakagawa, Finance Department. As you know, we just came before you just a few weeks ago when we, for the closing of the Iki Place, our Improvement District 21. So we went through the same format we are required to come forward. And this one is for the end of the fiscal year. The only minor notable changes are the payments that we made during that closing and this report. So if you're comparing the two, it's pretty similar except for a few payments. And happy to go through that if you'd like, or just to note that the differences is the payments that happen between the two reports.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you very
welcome.
much.
Thank you. Ms. Nakagawa, I have one question. The June 23rd, 2022 bond under Schedule D for the Water Supply Department, what was that for? $3.9 million. Do you know?
Sorry, Schedule D.
Schedule D, June 23rd, 2022, obligation bonds reimbursable, $3.925 million.
I apologize, Councilmember. I don't recall what that one was at the moment. We may have Chris Nakano, our treasurer, on. He might have an answer. If not, we'll be happy to get that to you.
Yeah, I'd like to, if you look into it, I'd like to know what all of those were for. I'm tracking
All of the ones under water supply?
Yeah.
Okay.
Trying to track the direction of the Water Supply Department and how they align with what's happening in our county.
Okay, happy to get that for you.
Thank you very much. Okay, seeing no further discussion, motion to close file on communication 970 is on the floor. All in favor? Any opposed? Mr. Clerk, you have 8 ayes. Councilmember Inaba excused. Motion carries.
Is there any testimony for Resolution 609-26? Hearing none, Resolution 609-26 authorized payment of funds of later fiscal years for the funding of cost items associated with the Hawaii Government Employees Association, Bargaining Unit 15, for the contract period beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2029. The estimated costs over the 4 years of the new contract resulting from lump sum payments, across the board increases, and step movements will be $1,819,315. Introduced by Councilmember Connolly Kleinfelder by request.
Chair, motion to forward Resolution 609-26 to council with a favorable recommendation.
Motion by Councilmember Hustis, seconded by Councilmember Onishi, forwarding Resolution 609-26 to council with a favorable recommendation. Any discussion, Councilmember Kagiwara?
Thank you, Chair. I guess it's finance I have a question for. Oh, as you're walking up, just, I'm trying to see in here, where does health insurance fall within these agreements? Or is that a totally separate thing that isn't included here?
I apologize, Councilmember. I'm not sure, is your question, where's the cost of the, or not in the agreement itself?
I'm just wondering, I noticed that this has everything fringe benefits, it has, pay, it has those things, but there's no mention of health insurance costs or, within this. And when I look at the details of what it says fringe benefits are, it's not listed in there as part of the fringe benefits. So I'm just wondering, are health insurance costs not included in something like this for a reason? Are they totally separate?
I don't think it's included in this cost worksheet that we put forward, but let me get for you where it is included. And I'll show you where that is.
Okay.
But I just don't think it was included in this template.
Okay.
But I'll double check for you.
Okay, thank you. I do appreciate that because I know that that's an issue. I don't know, I've been watching what they've been doing over on Maui and Kauai. I talked to the mayor right when it was the very first meeting I had with him about trying to look at seeing if we can do what they're doing in Maui and Hawaii, which is covering the cost of health insurance for our county employees. And so I would like to see kind of where those numbers are playing out and what we're talking about here. All right?
Yes, will
Thank
do.
you. I appreciate that. I yield.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, motion is on the floor to forward Resolution 609-26 to council with the favorable recommendation. All in favor? Any opposed? Mr. Clerk, you have 8 members and aye. You have 1 member excused, Mr. Inaba, and the motion carries.
Is there any testimony for Resolution 610-26? Hearing none, Resolution 610-26 authorizes payment of funds of later fiscal years to enter into a multi-year licensing agreement with MRI Software LLC for PHA Pro software and related services to be used by the Office of Housing and Community Development. Authorizes the mayor to enter a 5-year agreement with an approximate annual cost of $55,593 for the first year, and increasing thereafter to provide software licensing and other related services to be used by the department to meet program requirements and officially document communication with applicants, participants, and vendors. Introduced by Councilmember Connolly Kleinfelder by request.
Chair, motion to forward Resolution 610-26 to council with a favorable recommendation.
There was a motion by Councilmember Hustis and a second by Councilmember Onishi. Any discussion on Resolution 610-26? Hearing and seeing none, motion is on the floor to forward Resolution 610-26 to council with a favorable recommendation. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Mr. Clerk, you have 8 ayes. Mr. Inaba excused. Motion carries. Thank you.
Is there any testimony for Resolution 612-26? Hearing none, Resolution 612-26 authorizes the payment of funds from later fiscal years to enter a multi-year agreement for online legal research services and legal print resources for the Office of Corporation Counsel. Authorize the mayor to enter into a 5-year agreement with an approximately cost of $13,522.08 until December 31, 2006, and then $14,245 per month until the end of year 1, with an increase of 7% per year thereafter for the proprietary software and other services. Introduced by Councilmember Connolly Kleinfelder by request.
Chair, motion to forward Resolution 612-26 to council with a favorable recommendation.
Motion by Councilmember Houston, seconded by Councilmember Onishi to forward resolution 627-26 to council with a favorable recommendation. Any discussion? Six what? 612. Oh, I did it again, sorry. Okay, restating the motion. Motion by Councilmember Houston and seconded by Councilmember Onishi to forward resolution 612-26 to council with a favorable recommendation. Any discussion? We do have Mr. Yoshimoto joining us today on the video screen. Thank you for being here, Mr. Yoshimoto. We have no discussion for you, sir. Thank you for being here. Seeing no further discussion, motion is on the floor to close to forward resolution 612-26 to council with a favorable recommendation. All in favor? Any opposed? Mr. Clerk, you have 8 members in favor. Mr. Inaba excused. Motion carries.
Is there any testimony for resolution 627-26? Hearing none, resolution 627-26 authorizes the mayor to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the state of Hawaii Department of Land and Natural Resources to receive a grant for 4 attendees to participate in the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions Forum 2026. Allows the receipt of $20,190 in federal-derived funds to cover travel stipends for 2 staff members from the planning department and 2 cultural resource commissioners. Introduced by Councilmember Connolly Kleinfelder by request.
Chair, motion to forward resolution 627-26 to council with a favorable recommendation.
A motion by Councilmember Houston and a second by Councilmember Onishi forwarding resolution 627-26 to council with a favorable recommendation. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Houston.
Chair, we have Ms. Morrison here, I think, for this resolution, if there are any questions.
Thank you. Is there any questions for Ms. Morrison? Okay, thank you very much. Motion is on the floor. All in favor? Any opposed? Mr. Clerk, you have 8 members in favor. Mr. Inaba excused. Motion carries.
Is there any additional testimony for Bill 173? Hearing none, Bill 173 amends Chapter 19 of the Hawaii County Code 1983, 2016 edition as amended relating to the establishment of a bed and breakfast home classification for real property taxes. Establishes a new bed and breakfast home property tax class for any property that is a vacation rental and the owner's principal residence. Establishes a 3% annual assessment increase cap for the new tax class and establishes a temporary tax amnesty period for properties of existing vacation rentals in violation of restrictions on the homeowner class to either cease the rental activity or to properly register the rental activity without being penalized. Introduced by Councilmember Kimball. This matter is postponed July 22, 2026. You have a motion on the floor by Councilmember Kimball, seconded by Councilmember Glemba, to recommend passage of Bill 173 on first reading.
Ms. Kimball, go ahead.
Thank you. So as you may recall, last meeting, Real Property Administrator Mura was not available to comment on this particular piece of legislation. So I did want to make sure you folks all had the opportunity to hear from her about the department's position. I will note, I think there was a good discussion about this in the last hearing, and there are definitely, fairness concerns that should be taken into account. The testifier earlier today mentioned, perhaps dividing the property between the residential use and the commercial use. That's not something we can do in the system, so I just want to make sure that that's clear. There's another piece of information that was made available to us in the intervening period here that adding the cap to this new tax class, if we were to create this new tax class, would actually cost us something, since it would not be available for free within the RPT software right now. So I'll let the administrator speak to that, but happy to take questions and have a deeper discussion about this effort. For me, the main thing is the amnesty, and part of that is encouraging folks to register under the new registration system. I do think that there are questions of fairness around that for folks that have been paying appropriately as a hosted bed and breakfast all this time versus folks that have been operating under the radar. But at the same time, if the goal is to get everybody registered, that's the other argument on the other side of that. So if I can ask Administrator Mura to come up and just give us a brief overview of the RPT position, and then I'll let you stay in the hot seat for questions from my colleagues. Thank you.
Good morning, Real Property Tax Administrator Lisa Mura. So I'll share some of the questions maybe we have or points that Councilmember Kimball also brought up. We don't technically take a position of for and against. We give you the pros and the cons or some of the positives as much as I would love to. Our division is supposed to just adhere to what the county council decides. In regards to, or adding on to what Councilmember Kimball said, currently our program cannot handle another tax class with a cap. And so right now you have a 3% cap on homeowner and affordable rental, which is at the same tax rate and the same cap. So she's correct. The current system cannot. We've put in a request already to see what the additional cost would be to do that programming. This would create your 11th tax class for real property tax, and that doesn't include your tiers. If you include the tiers, that would be 13 tax classes. So I believe a question would be is if it provides more clarity or confusion for the taxpayers and for yourselves. And regarding the amnesty, Councilmember Kimball brought it up. It's to encourage individuals to apply for, I believe, a different program within the planning department or finance, however it's written. I know there's something coming up regarding that. The deadline for this is December 31st, and that would be for individuals to apply for the amnesty. I think for our office, we are getting a lot of pushback from some of the public in regards to other things that were approved previously, and I'll give an example, the long-term rental. I have some individuals upset that we didn't notify them personally. There was a long-term rental class, and so they didn't apply, so they want it automatically. We don't give any programs automatically, so our concern would only be that how the public would become aware that there's this amnesty period. Again, I'm not saying whether it's bad or good, I'm just saying it would be how the public would be informed of county council action. And I know that's been a big discussion that Councilmember Kirkowitz has brought up. How are we gonna do that? Our office is struggling on trying to keep up with the changes, all of them good. However, getting it to the public has been difficult because we used to rely on the newspaper or media, and it's not sufficient. We put it in our assessment notice insert. Not everybody reads the assessment notice insert. And that's all I can say about that right now. In regards to the amnesty, I do want to clarify, right now we are still trying to do compliance. We do not have a compliance officer. I think you've heard other departments are struggling to keep compliance officers. It's a pretty hated job in the county, and they have been threatened before, and none of our staff in Kona have been wanting to go and take that position right now. And I'm only sharing this for transparency for the council. In regards to the homeowner tax class, we created the long-term rental, county council, tax class to try and encourage owners to go into the long-term rental. And we did have a good amount of applicants for that. With the 3% cap when it was on the, well, it is currently in the bill, I think our concern maybe is that it would unintentionally encourage owners to just go back to the short-term rental, because the only difference they would have seen then is the dollar difference in your tax rate. And I have heard numerous owners come out and say, I don't care how low you go on long-term rental, we're going to stick to our hosted short-term because of all of the tenancy laws. And again, I don't know how this bill would handle or deal with the public that wants to go back to short term. Historically, owners that have registered with planning previously for a special use permit for hosted bed and breakfast, they've had to make that decision, whether it was worth it tax-wise to go to a special use permit. Those individuals for years, and I believe there's a testimony that came in late, it was submitted to me as well. An owner has done this since 2003, and she's felt like she played by all the rules, paid all her taxes, and now that there's this new tax class, those individuals are going to get a break that wasn't considered. But it does bring up, where does that leave the commercial? So if council is willing to do a owner-occupied, and I know it's called bed and breakfast, but it's for hosted rentals of less than 180 days. Where does that leave the commercial properties? And that would be individuals like hairdressers, auto repair, massage, acupuncture that currently are not getting the homeowner tax class because they are operating a business out of their home. So that's some questions that have been presented to our office, and we explained to them that you should come and provide your own testimony regarding that, but they would be excluded from this bill. I think the hard part for our office is I understand the carrots that are needed to be given, but it adds another stick and another layer of compliance for our office that I want to be able to make sure we're able to handle. If the only difference is going to be a matter of $1 or $2 in your tax rate between that and the homeowner, I don't know if council would get to the point where they would just consider opening up. If you live on your home, you can rent it long-term, short-term, do your commercial activity, and you're in the homeowner tax class. I mean, that takes care of a couple of problems. One, I don't have to worry about compliance. I don't have to worry about my staff being threatened anymore by the public, and you don't have to get the complaints. And I know this stems from those living on their property not being able to afford their increase in taxes because they've been rolled back for the 2 years plus the current year if there's reviews. That does get away from trying to promote your long-term rental program. So that would be a decision that county council would need to make as a whole on where you want to move the island and what kind of housing you're supporting. That's pretty much all I have. I'm here for any questions. I know it was a lot. I'm sorry. We couldn't make it last time, but we're here now.
Thank you, Administrator, for all of that. And, I have had conversations with the department around these items. I look forward to the discussion from my colleagues and to answer any questions you may have. I do have an amendment on standby here that would still create the additional tax class, but would remove the 3% cap provision. So as we have the conversation, just letting you know that's waiting in the wings if that's the direction folks want to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember, who was first? Councilmember Kailua-Kona.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Administrator, for being here. We were looking forward to your input, and I'm a little bit confused about some of the things you said, so I'm going to try to clarify just a bit. So you do see a difference, based on your experience, between this group of homeowners and currently who they're mixed in with? Is that what you were saying?
I'm sorry, between which two groups?
So the group of homeowners who rent something short or long-term, and those who are not, it's not their specific home, that you do see that there's a difference there that you think is a relevant difference.
There is definitely a difference between the two groups. There's the non-hosted rentals where they don't necessarily even live on island. They could live anywhere. Versus those that live in their home and are renting a room, an ohana unit, or a separate dwelling. Those individuals that apply for the homeowner program do get the homeowner exemption right now. They do not get the homeowner tax class. And I do know that there was a testifier here, and I believe she was trying to say, do the part that you have the homeowner tax class as one tax class and the rest of the property separate. And I have to just remind current council that the homeowner tax class is an overriding tax class, so it's all or nothing. We cannot split that category, and mainly that is because you have the 3% cap on that program, similar to the affordable rental.
So if you didn't have the 3% cap, which it sounds like it would be an additional expense to put that on anyway, is it something that you could do, or would it be pretty challenging for your department?
So to create a new tax class, the county council can, similar to your long-term rental. We can create tax classes. There is room for that in our program. It's tying that to a cap with a different tax rate.
I see. So you couldn't have a cap for one part of the house and not have a cap for one part of the house. That's what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, I get it. Yeah. So I also see a real difference between people who live here and it's their home, and even versus those who may be a caretaker living on the property for the express purpose of maintaining the property as a short-term vacation rental. Very differently, I see those two categories, which is why, I generally am intrigued and supportive of this idea. I also don't think the 3% cap, as you mentioned, we don't want to undermine our long-term and affordable rentals. I see that. Also, it gets so close to just the homeowners that there's not really a difference also. I think it's really hard because we have so many is trying to make those distinctions. But to me, if we're going to do this, we shouldn't make it so similar to the homeowners that it almost doesn't matter, unless we do what you said, which was consider allowing small businesses in homes without losing your cap and your homeowners. So I think there's a lot to think about here. How hard I know you're saying there's a lot of tax categories and everything. Would it be a particular burden for your office to have this additional category if you didn't have the cap?
It would be, without the cap, it's possible in the current program without any major cost. It would just be the time and informing the public of this change and who would go into the program. And then that would bring up, is December 31st a realistic deadline? Only from the standpoint, and I'm not involved in the other legislation with the rental activity of less than 180 days. And I keep going back to that because it's called different things by different people. I don't know how many of them are going to realize they can qualify for the amnesty in time if they filed by December 31st. Like, how would they even know about it? Not saying it's a bad idea. It'd be nice to have a clean start, but I just want to make sure everybody who can qualify for it is subject to, and just letting council know up until then, we are still doing compliance. I haven't received anything formal stating that we needed to stop doing the current compliance as we get complaints.
Okay, thank you. I yield for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Eustace?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Administrator Miura. How many properties would you expect could qualify for this new classification?
There are over 2,000 right now that we are aware of, but that we know of.
And so that impact, that fiscal impact would be substantial?
Yes, and we didn't run those numbers yet since I came back.
Okay.
But we can, based on what we have in our system. And how we would calculate that is just taking anybody with a homeowner exemption that is not currently getting a homeowner tax class. For whatever reason, we don't separate in our system if it's because of hosted rental or commercial activity.
Kind of in a more specific area, if we look at our residential class, our 3 tiers there, including our higher value resort properties, could one of these properties be able to qualify for this B&B class as it's written here, in terms of it's identified as a resident, permanent, their primary residence, but it's being taxed at tiers 1, 2, or 3, and
So
then be able to get this identified in this new tax class then?
So when council created the residential tier 2 and 3, it excluded those with a homeowner exemption. So they're not in there. They would still pay just the residential
Right.
tax
But if
rate.
they get that homeowner exemption, if they say it's their primary residence and get the homeowner exemption, they would be down at this, a different tier then, possibly.
Correct, and there are properties in the resort area that are doing short-term rental, including hosted.
Yes. Councilmember Kimball, maybe more of a question to you. I understand, that the amnesty piece there, but waiving the back taxes. I understand the penalties and the fees, but trying to bring it into compliance with waiving the back taxes maybe a little bit too far. And it could leave some that have complied with the law previously and kind of create some imbalance there in terms of the equity piece, I think. Yeah, so maybe just, if that's the case, then just the penalties and interest, but those back taxes are, I think, still something to be considered for sure. Yeah. I think that's all I have for right now. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Onishi?
Thank you, Chair. So you mentioned about like notifications, right, of the program, like having this new thing coming up. Do you have any other legislation that was done prior to other classes? And are you folks like up to par to deadlines of the property owner meeting those deadlines?
Do you mean, are we following all the deadlines that's currently in the code that we're responsible for?
Following, but then you need the applicant to also submit to meet these deadlines, right? And are you like, are they like, cause we doing this December, right? 2026. So like you say, there might not be enough time. So would you want that to be pushed back?
I believe if there's going to be a delay in individuals qualifying or applying for the hosted short-term rental, if this is what this bill is trying to tack on with, then there should be an extension or a way to notify everybody in the homeowner tax class, which is over 40,000 parcels, that if you're doing a hosted rental, there's an amnesty program. I believe that would be a good way to notify them. That's not in my budget.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know not everyone watches this council meetings, right? And then also in the newspaper, publicity wise, there's no, outreach, right? So that's when people start hearing from the coconut wireless, and that's when you folks start getting the phone calls, right?
Correct. It would be great if more people read the newspaper. I don't. I read some headlines, and when it's on social media and when there's something on short-term rental, I will read it. But I'm not skimming it every day. So I'm not definitely putting down anyone who doesn't read the paper daily. It's hard to, so let's say county council approved this today and it went through in September. I would have to go through procurement to get 3 bids to send out 40,000 plus notices. I'm not going to get that out to the public before December 31st deadline, even if I had the funds. It's a tight time frame.
Right.
But I understand where it's trying to tie into a current system.
Right. And then there might be a change order of transferring funds from one account to another to help you with this advertising, correct?
If I could even get that from my finance director. We're a little tight on funds this year. We were all told to watch how we spend.
Right.
And so we've pretty much budgeted in our office. There's no fat for us to try and skim from another account.
Okay, thank you. I want planning to come up. Are you able to speak on behalf of the department? Or is our director available?
I will do my best.
Okay. Is this a push by the department, by planning department, to also get this moving forward?
I don't know that. Probably Councilmember Kimball can speak to that better, but I know that we are definitely pushing hard to that September go live date.
Yeah.
And in fact, that's why director's not here right now, is because they're meeting with consultants to get that
Okay.
ready.
Okay, yeah, I mean, because it seems like some legislation that is being put in is being rushed, and it's for certain purposes of funding, right? And, you know, I had a meeting with Director of Finance, and I just feel uncomfortable, is because of, say, the funding that the fees will be collecting, or the increase will be helping the planning department in providing more, I guess, employees, right? But then we don't really know what is the total expenses and what is the total income going to be coming in, right? And so I just look at this as like, kind of, because if it comes from the department, or comes from the property tax, or it comes from finance, or it comes from the administration, then I can see something like this legislation being put in, right? And what could happen with additional funds, correct? But now, when individuals put this in, then it's like, okay, where's that catch, right? Where does this extra funding goes to, right? And so that's the only thing I'm worried about. So maybe I'll just reach out to the director to find out, you know, what is his thoughts about this, right?
I know that the, what we now have is the STVR fund, and that we have staff underneath that
Right.
funding that are doing the program now. And that is anticipated, of course, to increase with the legislation that you folks are considering. But that has nothing to do with the funds that would be coming in from the RPT, that those funds are separate.
Right, and you know,
So-
I did talk to director about having general funds being used to pay, to use to put, for the positions of the STVR guys, right? And not waiting for this legislations all to come in, and, you know, and then we move forward, yeah, so, but I'll talk to them, and thank you. I yield, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Kimball?
Yeah, just to provide some context to my colleague, Mr. Onishi. So this bill originated actually out of conversation with the mayor and managing director. They had received some complaints, one of them from the woman who testified earlier today, about the tax increases that they were affected by once they were discovered that they were operating short-term vacation rentals. And so I was having to be meeting with the mayor about something else, and I said, well, that's been the law since 1986. And I said, there is a way to change it. This is how it would be done, and that's the generation of this piece of legislation. So in terms of follow-up, I suggest talking to the mayor and the managing director on that. With regard to the communication issue, one thing that is perhaps a little bit different than some of the other initiatives is because we have concurrently the program with Deckert that's going to be scrubbing the VRBO Airbnb sites to identify all of the short-term vacation rentals. We'll actually have a smaller pool, I think, that needs to be identified rather than all homeowners. So, you know, there's the sense that that will act in concert with the real property tax department, so we can do that notification. As far as timing goes, you know, there is synchronicity between 173 and 175 about that time period where we're giving people to register their TABRs and this grace period for the amnesty. And so, you know, just for the sake of clarity, if we want to push this one out, I suggest we push that other one out as well, just so that they're lined up identically. Totally happy to look at the back taxes issue in terms of the amnesty. You know, again, I am putting this forward for discussion, and so if that's something the body generally would like to see, I'm happy to put forth that amendment. I think we can do that and still maintain the integrity of the bill. Yeah, I will leave it there. Unless there's no further discussion, then I'll just put the amendment out there for. Okay, seeing no. You want to go ahead first? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Administrator Miura. I always appreciate your opinion. Let's see here. You raised some good points. So the difference, I mean, really, we have the proposed language in front of us. This would create a new tax class for those in the bed and breakfast category who chose to jump in. I'm gonna assume, don't shoot me, but I'm gonna assume the interest here is to collect taxes from businesses that do bed and breakfast activities and also to incentivize registration. That's kind of what I see this as. On the taxes side, they should already be paying their transient accommodation tax to the state and to the county. So we already have a tax revenue there. So that in itself, just on the business end, with what I heard from the director, is an interesting component of what's in front of us if we look to, by doing this, create a different tax structure for those in the bed and breakfast home category. So seeing as we'd almost be creating I'm gonna call it a double tax, because they're being a new property tax or an adjusted property tax rate, stepping out of whatever they're in now, which could be commercial, hotel and resort, residential, or even homeowners, into the new bed and breakfast home category. We don't have a rate for that right now, right? So we don't know where it would sit. Can I ask what your rate thought is?
Yeah, I mean, given the other programs that we've tried to incentivize, I would envision this rate being somewhere above the long-term rental category, but below the residential classes, which is where these properties, for the most part, fall at this time.
Okay, so somewhere between, what is it, 6 and 14? Is that what it's at?
It's 775 and 1110, but keep in mind agricultural is at 935.
Okay, so somewhere between 7 point, what did you say, 7?
75.
775 and 11 would be the range of.
1110.
1110 is, sorry, a proposed tax rate. And then the agricultural component?
So properties, as we have over 40,000 properties in the agricultural tax class right now, because of their zoning and being larger than an acre, even though they're not doing active ag use, are at 935, even if they have a house on it.
So maybe Ms. Morrison can answer this question, because we just had this meeting with planning department, and there's a really interesting little component of like ag tourism, but only for properties. What is it? Not zoned, subdivided before a certain date.
There is a pre-1976 issue and then a post-1976 issue. So pre-1976 lots they're kind of grandfathered in as far as the state land use agricultural district permitted uses. And then post-1976, then they have to follow what the state law says for agricultural districts.
Correct.
So there's a bunch of things that plays with, from subdivision to TVRs to additional farm dwellings, all those things.
It's kind of like the elephant, in this conversation to me, because a lot of these are primary homes. The pre-76ers can actually do an additional farm dwelling, and then that farm dwelling could be used for a vacation rental, correct?
Yes.
I don't think most people understand that in full, because it's a little bit more complex than the average person digs into. would this property class be available to the pre-76ers?
The agriculture or the bed and breakfast?
Bed and breakfast.
Yes. From what I understand, what their planning is saying is that it's actually the post-1976 that has more of the issue with a farm dwelling being rented out as a short-term rental. Our office doesn't look at that, though. We look at how you're using the property, and we go by what's on the bill. So we do have a conflict between what planning's doing and real property in that regard.
Yeah. Before I forget, the last section, section 2 of the proposed bill, number 3, all parcels entering this class shall have the assessed value as of January 1st of the following year and be subject to the above provisions. So that would mean then if they got in, let's say tomorrow, then their assessed value would be this coming January 1st?
Correct. And keep in mind, there are already properties in the special use bed and breakfast. So we'd need to clarify, I believe those would automatically go into it. They don't have to apply for this program. This is an automatic, they go into this program if they've registered with the planning department.
Just this section? Or across the board?
It is just this section. The one thing they're applying for with us would be the amnesty. That's the only thing that requires an application.
The assessed value is actual, like January 1st assessed value, or it's their existing assessed value, no more than 3% increase, blah, 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 blah. Because the assessed value of a home now versus a home from 10 years ago or 15 years ago is going to be incredibly different.
It's going to be as of now. We're not looking backwards on changing. And the assessed value itself doesn't change. It's a new tax class. But then next year they would be subject to the 3% cap. It would set as the base year for it for this next year.
Cool, that's going to be a big jump.
You actually lose tax revenue with the bill. You don't increase it because they're not in the homeowner tax class now, unless there's individuals that come in and say, we've been doing it, but you've been giving us the homeowner tax class. Because the homeowner tax class doesn't allow for hosted short-term rentals or anything less than 180 days. But the only ones that are not getting the homeowner.
The registered ones, yes.
And the ones that we've caught through the years.
So only the unregistered homes would see a huge spike in their valuation potentially.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Always helpful. Councilmember Kimball.
Yeah, so just to kind of give you a scenario to illustrate the point, if you've had somebody they had their kids at home, they've lived in their home for 25 years, it's been under the homeowners tax class, they've had that 3% cap, that becomes a pretty big difference between the assessed value and the market value over that course of 25 years. The kids leave, they decide to rent our home as a bed and breakfast. They don't realize that by doing it for less than 180 days, they're losing that cap. It's discovered, reported by a neighbor. The biggest impact to that residence is the difference in the assessed value based on the years under that cap. And it can be pretty significant. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars, not adding into that the fees and penalties that may be associated with it. So that is part of what this bill is intended to address. You would think that there would be this sharing of information, but there are approximately 180 properties that have a bed and breakfast permit right now per planning site. Now, I don't know if RPT has all of those actually identified and in the appropriate tax class, or some of them are still sitting there in the homeowner's tax class. But part of the whole registration process that we're looking at, you know, this is going to be publicly, this information is now going to be available to Lisa and her team. And so, you know, the compliance bit on the real property tax side does shift a little bit with the implementation of the software.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion to amend Bill 173 with the contents of communication 960.2.
We have a motion by Councilmember Kimball and a second by Councilmember Galimba to amend Bill 173 with the contents of communication 960.2.
Yes, and just as a reminder, what this amendment would do is it keeps the creation of the new homeowners, the bed and breakfast homeowner tax class, it keeps the amnesty and removes the 3% cap.
Thank you. Discussion? Sorry, one more time, Ms. Kimball, what does this do?
This removes the 3% cap from being applied to the new bed and breakfast homeowner tax class. So it still creates the new tax class for which the future council would set the new rate, and it keeps the amnesty program for people that either register or discontinue doing short-term vacation rentals, and it just removes that cap. So there would not be that protection on inflation of market value over time.
Councilmember Kailua-Kona.
Thank you. Supportive of the amendment. Just to me, it makes a lot of sense. So give them amnesty, and at that time, people can decide, knowing full well what all the costs and everything are going forward, whether they want to continue doing short-term vacation rentals, or they want to do long-term rentals, or if they don't want to have commercial rentals at all in their property. And if they get the amnesty, they will not be having a great big expense at that point. They will probably have very little expense, zero expense. I guess I need a little clarification on that. What might their expenses be at that point if they get the amnesty and they stop doing short-term vacation rentals? Would there be an expense for those folks, or would they not have an additional expense? Or is that a cloudy question that's hard to answer? Administrator, please.
If I understand correctly, if somebody comes forward with this, that they're going to cease to operate, then they would, it doesn't affect them. I believe the way the code is written, and I can check with our county attorney, is that it just stays in the homeowner tax. They basically say, hey, I was doing this, I didn't know, and they move forward, but they cease. If we catch them after still renting, after submitting that, then we're going to hit them, sorry, I shouldn't say hit, then we're going to do a current plus rollback on the property. Because I don't think it's right that you come out and say, I'm going to stop to avoid paying the taxes you should have per county code that other people are, and then you continue to operate.
Correct. And then if they get the amnesty, register, and want to continue to do short-term rentals, they would lose their 3% cap and be in a different tax class.
Yes.
Going forward.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Councilmember Galimba.
Actually, I think my question is for the main body, so I'll wait.
Okay. Okay. Seeing no lights on. So on the amendment, all in favor? Any opposed? Mr. Clerk, you have 8 ayes, 1 excused. Mr. Inaba, motion carries. Back to the main motion, Bill 173 is amended with the contents of communication 960.2. Further discussion. Councilmember Galimba.
So this, I guess the what sort of Manini technical question I have, and it's based on the fact that, you know, probably all of us have folks that have contacted us over the years that have been in that exact scenario of renting out their extra bedroom and not realizing what the implications of that are. So for that person who maybe is dealing with you right now, I assume they're not part of this, but I'm wondering if they would also sort of get the what is it called now? The
Amnesty.
amnesty, would they not?
Correct. The way the bill is written, honestly, if we find out today and there are reviews going back at least 2 years or more, then you get an amended notice for the current year, which is this tax year we're in right now, and 2 years prior.
Okay.
So the amnesty hasn't started, this bill hasn't been approved, so we're not recognizing this, nor have I received any communication or anything from council stating that we should not be doing compliance right now. So we're continuing on as business as usual.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, I think this is trying to help people to do the right thing. In a way, I wish we didn't have to do a whole other tax class to do it, but thinking it through, it probably is the way that we need to go to do what we want to do. Or do you have any other thoughts on that? Is there a way to do this without creating another tax class?
The only thing I shared earlier was not restricting your homeowner tax class to exclude rental activity of less than 180 days, and commercial, if you're going to look at that as well, where if you live on the property, you apply for the homeowner program, you just do whatever you want, and you get the best benefits. Then you don't have to worry about the calls or the complaints or compliance or any of it. That's my only thought on that. I'm not saying that's what I'm supporting. I'm saying if that's where the concern's coming from, that's your other alternative.
Thank you for talking me through it. Okay. That's all my questions for now.
Thank you. Councilmember Villegas.
Yeah, I find myself, first off, grateful for your honesty. Lisa, you consistently dance that fine margin of honoring, trusting, and respecting the decisions of council, while also honestly, respectfully, and authentically expressing the challenges in RPT in your office, and acknowledging and making sure we have a depth and breadth of understanding of how the many changes we have made to property taxes in the last few years affect your department, the people there, and your capacities to do your job. We struggle, all of us, constituents included, with this dance of tax rates, tax brackets, the variety of nuanced usages of private property in its different, in the different ways we identify those properties and their uses. We also have, a community on the one hand that struggles to pay their mortgage and gas and all those things, while also having, in my district in particularly, disproportionate amount of newer community members who have utilized this opportunity for predatory behaviors, which have disproportionately imbalanced our housing market, the price of real estate, just about everything, top to bottom. So how we bring back some balance, some equity, while doing the most good, right? And the least harm, because we will not be able to please everybody. But most of us on the council in some capacity are parents or aunties or uncles or that understand the challenge anyway and the impossibility of pleasing everyone. I'm on the fence with this. I struggle because, you know, having been around when Bill 108 was originally passed, which was a great step in the right direction of trying to recalibrate and realign everything that was happening at that time, which has only escalated over time with COVID and all the different external factors. But people wanted enforcement of that current legislation. And I really appreciate your honesty in sharing how difficult it is to have people be the inspectors and be the quote unquote bad guy, bad person out there busting people. And I am constantly surprised by the number of people under quite exotic circumstances that have the audacity to claim, hardship under circumstances that they are operating certain businesses models on their residential property. Wealth creation is very different than keeping shelter and a roof over your head for you and your family. I wish people understood more authentically and deeply how wealth creation for some in this current economic linear model eliminates shelter for the common good, the collective. So it does have direct impacts. I know I'm talking in circles and a little philosophical here, but this is where my mind goes in all of this, especially in District 7, where there really are no long-term rentals. And our workforce travels for hours on end to get here to make wages that can barely cover the gas nowadays to get there. So we find ourselves in these trying times and tipping point. So my deepest intention is to approve of legislation and move us forward to kind of digging out of, or there's a lot of systems. Just one more second, Chair, I'll finish here. I'm just sharing my conflict in this, and sometimes the more complicated we make it, the more complicated any solutions are. So how do we simplify, do the greatest good, least harm, and without putting RPT underwater? So that's where I'm struggling with right now.
Thank you. Councilmember Eustace.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, you asked Councilmember Kimball about her idea about where the approximate rate would be set and those ideas. Personally, I think it's the window's a little bit tighter between ag and res 1. I don't think it can go kind of closer to that affordable one, but personal opinion there to be considered later date. I still have an issue with the amnesty side, as I mentioned before, on the rollback taxes. I understand the penalties and interest, but you have people that are in compliance that have paid all of their taxes. So what does that fairness provide to those that have been in compliance if people are trying to get them into compliance still owe? So I think that's still something that we need to consider in terms of their rollback taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one more thing, but go ahead.
You get to speak at the end. So just to that, Councilmember Eustace, I'm happy to bring forward an amendment next time for the body to consider that would remove the rollback portion of that amnesty program and keep the penalties and interest as the items that are waived. To Councilmember Galimbo's question, it's really section 19-53E2AII That is the one that we need to, I, that we need to look at as an alternative, because those are the ones that exclude people from the property, the homeowner's tax class, if they're doing the short-term rental or the commercial activity. So another way of addressing this would be to approach it from an amendment to that section of the code. There might be one other section, Lisa, if you recall, but I think that is the main one that keeps people out of the homeowner's tax class. One other just brief comment that I think it's worth maybe having you touch on, Administrator Mura, is what some of the other counties do for this. Not that we should always look at what other counties do. Sometimes they do crazy things, but you know, some of the other counties do have the separate tax class for the bed and breakfast type unit, and I believe Maui actually even has a tier structure around those that are based on value as well. Not that I want to create 3 more classes, but just because that was raised by you, Councilmember Eustace. So would you just speak to that real quick? Thank you.
I didn't bring the all-state and the other counties' tax classes, but I believe 2 counties, and it's Maui and Kauai, have a type of owner-occupied, and one is commercial use on a property, whether that's short-term rental or regular commercial activity where the owner resides. And so I can bring that to the next council hearing because I don't have that here today. And the other one, I believe, did have an owner-occupied short-term rental usage. It might be called TVR, TAR. They have, everybody's using different terms, which is really adding to the confusion for the public. I'm going to just state by less than 180-day rental.
Thank you. And I'll just conclude by saying to Councilmember Villegas, I am equally conflicted. Even as the introducer, you know, typically we introduce a bill that we support. This is one that I'm not sure I support. I am as conflicted as you are. You know, we heard Councilmember Kirkowitz and I, as we were working on 121, that this is a big issue, is that people use the bed and breakfast model to make ends meet, to pay their mortgage, to send their kids to college, whatever. And they're really getting hit hard with these tax implications. On the other side of it, there's this whole fairness issue of people that, you know, were caught and have been paying the fair taxes and all that. So I am as conflicted as you, and that's why we're having this discussion here, because I really need to hear from you guys about where we want to take this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Councilmember Kimball, I was curious if you had socialized this particular piece of legislation with community. I always like to know the temperature of folks that are going to be impacted with particular legislation. And I know the struggle that has been mentioned here at Council is, will folks opt into this program or long-term rental, right? Like, is this going to cancel that out potentially? So I'm, you know, a couple questions here. Reaction from community, and then Administrator, with the change that we've just made to the legislation, do you think that is appropriate? There's appropriate distinction now between whether or not someone is going to decide whether long-term rental or this pathway is more financially viable to them. I'll start with you and then Councilmember. Thank you.
I believe with the removal of the 3% cap, there's going to be enough of a difference between that and the homeowner if the goal is trying to incentivize long-term rental. I think the concern when you had the 3% cap is it's just going to be a few dollars difference in the tax rate, which is a huge difference, but the 3% cap is honestly, to me as a longtime homeowner that does not do short-term rental, that would keep me from ever thinking of doing short-term rental. So I think that hopefully answers your question there. And I just want to clarify, the other counties that do have an owner-occupied commercial use tax class or owner-occupied hosted rental do not have caps associated with those. Maui has 0 caps. Everything's tied to the tax rate. At the end of the day, I will say, no matter what we do, people are always going to want to save more on taxes. It's their personal budget. The other counties that have the lowest tax rates of any of us, you know, whether it's $2.50 for the homeowner, their taxpayers want to see the caps. We want to see a lower tax rate. It's always going to be a struggle no matter what council goes with. But hopefully with the 3% cap removed, that will be enough of a difference for the homeowners to make a decision.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that was shared for the record. I think folks want to see their tax money spent responsibly and that there's an actual return on investment, like the pool in their neighborhood is being fixed and they have an actual park that was envisioned 50 years ago actually being moved forward. So, I mean, I don't think folks have an issue with paying taxes so long there's delivery, there's results that they are seeing that improve their quality of life. Councilmember, just wanted to know if you wanted to weigh in on just the socialization of this idea and the impact. You know, I think as you mentioned earlier, the real struggle has been being able to differentiate between people that live here and actually rely on this as an income to help pay for mortgage. They have parents that are in long-term care, they're paying for their kids' college, and then you have individuals that don't live here and have the means, have the luxury to have an additional home, and this being another source of income. So we've struggled with being able to differentiate those. So just again, wanting to know what community reaction has been to this particular legislation.
So I think if I could summarize the reaction from the community as mixed as our own feelings and sentiments about it here. You certainly have the folks that, first of all, have already been identified as operating a short-term vacation rental and then hit by these big bills. And right, they've called to say, hey, what can you do? Unfortunately, we can't do retroactive fixes. So you have that camp. Then you have the camp of folks that have either issues with a short-term vacation rental next door, or they think there's a fairness issue. They've been following the law. They think there's a fairness issue, and so they're less supportive of it. But then you have this whole other category, like, can you provide some relief? This is how we stay afloat. A lot of those folks, I would say, are the ones on agricultural land too, just to make a note of that. This was originally part of Bill 121. There was this included there, so it was socialized with all of those conversations. It's also been up on the TVR website for a while now with some dialogue about it there, what it does, put out a couple of newspaper articles and things like that. So that's how it's been socialized, and again, mixed response.
Yeah, thanks for that honesty. Really struggling here. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Ms. Kailua-Kona?
Thank you. Sorry. Just a quick comment on the tax rates and thinking about how I think was a comment made that we may lose tax revenue with this program. We don't necessarily have to, depending on what next year's council decides around the rates. It could be that this rate stays at the current residential tier 1 or close to that, and then potentially the tier 1 residential, which no longer has our residents and homeowners in it, could potentially be raised. So it actually could be a revenue source going forward if we detach, I think, what we all seem to want to do, which is detach our resident homeowners from undue burden here. So I just wanted to mention that. I yield.
Thank you. Okay, Bethany. Are you speaking for planning department today?
I was here for specific resolution and bill, the next bill 180.
Who's speaking for planning department?
I can try, and then
Okay.
if not, I can try and get our director down here.
Maybe between the two of you.
Yeah,
Okay.
he can come down. I kept telling him, I think we're wrapping up. I think we're wrapping up.
Yeah, but you
So-
forgot about me and my last.
You want me to bring him down?
No, I mean, maybe, let's see how this goes, then we can go from there. So homeowners exemption, this sits in property tax code, yeah, 1971, because it's mentioned in this. It's mentioned, it's that section, right? So 1971E, that's not a date, that's a code section. Portions of real property, including principal home, used by any person for commercial purposes, which are legally permitted as a home occupation, shall be excluded from this exemption, but shall be entitled to an exemption with respect to the portion thereof used exclusively as a home. The next section, section F, notwithstanding paragraph 1971A to E, which is what I just read, above, having portions of the principal home located on real property used exclusively as a residential housing rental for a term of not less than 6 months shall not prevent eligibility for the exemption. So that's our long-term class carved out, correct? That still allows someone to have a homeowner's exemption.
Correct, just the exemption portion, so that lowers your taxable value. The tax class is in 1953.
Okay, now, in the same sense, for section E, could a different way, because there's different ways to skin a cat, right? Could we address, instead of a tax class, which I can see the heartburn for RPT right now. Instead of the tax class, could a bed and breakfast be considered a homeowner occupation? Which we may need, Jeff. But I mean, I thought we gave it a shot. Let's see. What do you think, Bethany?
We do have a definition of home occupation in our zoning code, and we do have it permitted within certain land use districts.
Okay.
It is different so far from a bed and breakfast or a STVR by definition.
Okay. So I didn't hear a no, but I did hear it's different.
It is different in our code currently.
Okay. You want?
It could be changed.
I agree. Jeff, do you want? She did a good job. So Jeff, we're catching up. So we're on the bed and breakfast RPT code that Councilmember Kimball created. What I'm dancing around is there's always different ways to do something. So we're discussing the formation of a bread and breakfast home tax class and the associated components of how we break it down. Also allowed in the homeowner's exemption category is a homeowner occupation. Could a bed and breakfast be included in the classification of a homeowner occupation? Which can then be charged fees and blah, 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 blah by the department.
Jeff Darrow with the Planning Department, Aloha Chair and Vice Chair and members of the Hawaii County Council. If I understand your question correctly, you're asking whether or not bed and breakfast can fall under home occupation within our code.
Correct.
Okay, so currently home occupation within our code is limited to very particular uses, but only one employee outside of the people residing in the house. So it typically could fall under that. We don't have a charge for that. It's just right now a declaration that you file, because that's what it was called, a home occupation declaration.
Isn't it like a $25 filing fee?
No filing fee.
It's free. Homeowner occupation, anybody can do it right now.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, the way we look at bed and breakfast operations, and we've been meeting with Public Works, we've been meeting with other agencies, we look at it as subordinate and incidental to the single family dwelling. It's not meant to be seen as a hotel or a lodge or an inn. It's meant to be accessory to the single family dwelling and incidental to that main use of a dwelling. And again, as Councilmember Kimball mentioned, it's a means that many people use to supplement their income and afford their mortgages and be able to make it here.
Agreed. So the E section is what I'm looking at, because then it gets specific. Those portions of the real property and or structures, including the home, used by any person for commercial purposes, which are legally permitted as a home occupation, in accordance with the zoning code, shall be excluded from the exemption, but shall be entitled to an exemption with respect to the portion thereof used exclusively as a home. So it actually is this balance between homeowners exemption and homeowner occupation, but you don't get your homeowner's exemption for the portion of the home being used as a home occupation. So I almost want to say this actually does exist kind of right now in our code for those able to be in the homeowner occupation or to sign up for a homeowner occupation.
So this would, if you were to compare it to a home occupation, a B&B, it would really depend upon the amount of bedrooms that a particular applicant would request. Obviously, if it was 1 bedroom, it would be less. If it was 5 bedrooms, that would be quite a substantial amount of the overall dwelling.
It would be, and then we'd change the way we tax the building because this allows us to. And RPT, stop me if I'm wrong.
So currently, even if you have a bed and breakfast, you are getting a homeowner exemption. They just don't get the homeowner tax class. And they only get the exemption. The exemption amount cannot be more than the value of the area that the owner is solely occupying. And that's how we apply that homeowner exemption. So they are getting it currently. And if an owner does a beauty salon, they don't get the exemption for the portion of the beauty salon, but it doesn't cover the homeowner tax class.
Okay. Yeah. Don't know if it made things better or worse, but I mean, there you go. I like it as a, I'm just thinking out loud, really, but I'm trying to find a different way of achieving the same result, just from what I'm gauging from the conversation as a whole today. Yeah. Councilmember Kimball.
Yeah, just to kind of build off on that, you know, one thing that's nice about the exemptions is that they are generally a more progressive solution, in the sense that lower income, lower value properties receive a greater benefit from the exemption than do higher value properties. And so, you know, another strategy around this would be to look at those exemption rates, which we did, you know, 4 or 5 years ago now. We did do an increase, and that had been the first increase in, what was it, 30 years or something lengthy. At any rate, you know, that is, I do think that clouds this conversation to have raised it, but it is another approach to this that is worth consideration. I can't believe I just said that about something you proposed, but no.
You did call me crazy. Once in a while, I prove it. But there is usually some kind of logic behind the craziness. Last question. One more question for RPT. Within that same section, 1971B, the use of a portion of any real property, accessory building, structures used for the sole purpose of agricultural activities shall not affect the exemptions otherwise provided by this section. So I'm going to go back to the pre-76ers. I got to do it. Pre-76 can get a homeowner's exemption and have a bed and breakfast. Actually, let's switch that and call it an agricultural tourism activities, because that's agricultural, without affecting their homeowner's exemption. Is that right?
May I answer that for you, Director?
Oh, you are more than welcome to, because the words that are about to come out of my mouth are not good for council.
So A homeowner can get the agricultural tax dedication benefits, so that is the lower property values that come from being in one of the ag programs, as well as the homeowner tax class on their primary residence, meaning they get the 3% cap and the lower tax rate. We do not allow, under our agritourism language in our bill, in our code, agricultural tourism to regulate short-term vacation rentals, because the state law restricts agritourism covering overnight accommodations to counties with at least 3 islands, which is something that I've been trying to change for years because it's not very logical. All of this, all of the TVR stuff on ag land would be better regulated under ag tourism, and I will be the first to admit that. But there's no relationship between ag tourism and tax policy at the county level. So we don't regulate overnight accommodations.
Can you summarize what she just said? And then incorporate your experience into this?
I don't step on planning's policies or their chapter, I think is a nice way to summarize it. So real property tax, and what we're focusing on in that exemption in particular is the agricultural land use. So someone can now apply, the county council approved it, and get a home exemption even though they have a lower agricultural use land value. You can also get the lower homeowner tax class and be doing active ag use. That was something council approved so that farmers and ranchers on their own property can get the best of both worlds. And they can make money in regards to their ag use. So if they have a little farm stand, they can sell it, and we're not gonna come in and say, oh, that's commercial, you're out of the homeowner tax class, because it's tied to ag use. And I know where you're going because I can see it, and you're gonna ask about farm stays.
I won't even ask.
Okay, so I will state this.
I think I got my answer.
Anything less than 180 days rental, and that's why I keep harping on that, is how it's worded in our code. We don't typically go to planning every time we get a compliance and go, is this pre-1976 or post? You have a rental of less than 180 days. You're supposed to pay TAT. You don't qualify for the homeowner tax class. I hope that answers that. I don't want to be used as the carrot and the stick for planning and building because it's too convoluted as it is in a tax structure. But that's how we are used.
I don't think I'm as smart as you think I am. I'll leave that one alone for a minute.
Council member?
Yes.
Real quick, I just wanted to maybe throw more of a wrench into this. So planning for years has been trying to get the Land Use Commission to change their policy on agricultural tourism and overnight accommodations, because as Council Member Kimbo said, it is specific to Maui, right? The county with 3 islands. We all argue we all have 3 islands, but regardless, it was specific to that. We were the first county to initiate the agricultural tourism ordinance. And when we did, we had a section in that code, which is in our zoning code, that if agricultural tourism wanted to do overnight accommodations, they had to come in for a special permit. So we've had not many, but a few come in that have legitimate agricultural tourist operations, and they apply for a special permit to do the overnight accommodations as part of the overall agricultural tourism operation. And again, we'd love to see that more in line with agricultural lands, that there be this strong connection to overnight accommodations and agricultural type uses. But it's hard when you're talking smaller lots that are mainly lava, or, you know, they're very poor for agricultural type purposes. But we have quite a number that offer, you know, they have tremendous agricultural operations going on, and they really do provide an experience to locals and tourists to be able to see that operation.
Okay. Okay, last question for Ms. Kimball. So when I said incentivize people to be in the tax class, is the incentive through if you don't sign up, we're coming for you, or is the incentive you save money on your property taxes by being in a lesser or in a different property tax class than where you are now?
The intent of the bill is twofold. One is to incentivize registration into the TVR platform by providing that amnesty period. The second is to acknowledge that a hosted rental or a bed and breakfast is different from an unhosted rental, and because it also serves as somebody's primary residence, perhaps they should get some tax relief as compared to a short-term unhosted vacation rental.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, further discussion? Okay. Yeah, okay, roll call on Bill 173 as amended with the contents of Communication 960.2.
On the motion to forward Bill 173 as amended to council with favorable recommendation, Councilmember Galimba.
Aye.
Councilmember Eustis.
No.
Councilmember Inaba. Councilmember Kagiwara.
Aye.
Councilmember Kirkowitz.
No.
Councilmember Kimball.
Aye.
Vice Chair Onishi.
Nope.
Councilmember Villegas.
No.
Finance Chair Connie Kleinfelder.
Aye.
Finance Chair Connie Kleinfelder, you have 4 votes in favor, those being yourself, Councilmembers Galimba, Kagiwara, and Kimball. 4 opposed and 1 absent. The motion fails. Bill 173 as amended will be forwarded to council with the unfavorable recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Next item, please. Thank you very much.
Is there any testimony for Bill 180? Hearing none, Bill 180 amends ordinance number 26-44, the operating budget of the County of Hawaii for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2027, appropriates serves in the federal grant certified local government account $20,190 and appropriates the same to the certified local government program account. Funds be used to cover travel stipends for 2 staff members from the planning department and 2 cultural resource commissioners. Introduced by Councilmember Connie Kleinfelder by request.
Chair, motion to forward Bill 180 to council with a favorable recommendation.
We have a motion by Councilmember Eustis and a second by Councilmember Galimba to forward Bill 180 to council with a favorable recommendation. Is there any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, motion is on the floor. All in favor? Any opposed? Mr. Clerk, you have 8 members in favor. Mr. Inaba excused. Motion carries. I believe that brings us to the end of our agenda. Seeing no further business, we are adjourned. It is 11:48. Our next committee will start shortly. Thank you very much.